Welcome to Science and Technology Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: ARM CEO fears humans could lose control of AI. Chinese state media changes Tibet to Xizang after Beijing white paper. Sunak's shift from Dishi Rishi to DR death faces UK hearing. Denker scores 18 in Idaho's 63-62 win over Utah Tech. Hundreds from Philippines set sail as tensions flare with China. ARM CEO fears humans could lose control of AI. Bloomberg. ARM CEO Rene Haas has said that he worries about humans losing capability to machines and has called for the inclusion of an override, some backdoor, some way that the system can be shut down. Haas added that ARM's next chapter will see the company becoming integral to the generative AI revolution in the same way it is to smartphones. Haas also expressed a desire for ARM to gain 50% of the cloud data center market and dominate edge computing. Chinese state media changes Tibet to Xizang after Beijing white paper. South China Morning Post. China's state media is increasingly using the term Xizang rather than Tibet in English articles when referring to the autonomous region in western China. The change comes after a white paper released by China's cabinet, the State Council, in early November outlined developments in Tibet since President Xi Jinping took power in 2012. The term Xizang is the pinyin, or Chinese romanization, of the Mandarin script for Tibet. The change is likely to have little impact on how the international community refers to the region. The move is seen as part of Beijing's efforts to exercise discourse power. Sunak's shift from Dishi Rishi to DR death faces UK hearing. Bloomberg. Rishi Sunak, the UK Chancellor of the Exchequer, is set to testify at the official COVID-19 inquiry, where he will be questioned about his judgment and decision-making during the pandemic. Sunak's signature policy during the first summer of the pandemic, the Eat Out to Help Out program, is expected to come under scrutiny. The program, which offered state-subsidized meals to encourage people to eat out, was heavily criticized by scientists and politicians who accused Sunak of prioritizing the economy over public health. A study by the University of Warwick economist Themo Fetzer found that the program had a significant causal impact on the increase in COVID cases. Sunak's testimony comes at a difficult time for him, as he also faces a battle within the Conservative Party over his plan to deport asylum seekers to Rwanda. The Tories are trailing the opposition Labour Party in the polls ahead of an election expected next year, and Sunak's association with the chaotic handling of the pandemic and the high death toll could damage his electoral prospects. Denker scores 18 in Idaho's 63-62 win over Utah Tech. Associated Press. Idaho defeated Utah Tech with a score of 63-62 in a basketball game on Saturday night. Quinn Denker led the Vandals with 18 points, while Hamed Olayinka made a pair of free throws for Utah Tech to score their final points. Tanner Christensen had 18 points and 10 rebounds for the Trailblazers, and Eric Demings contributed 16 points and 4 assists. Hundreds from Philippines set sail as tensions flare with China. Bloomberg. Tensions are rising in the South China Sea as Chinese and Philippine Coast Guard vessels clashed over the weekend. About 200 civilians from the Philippines have sailed to the South China Sea, escorted by the Philippine Coast Guard, and plan to visit the vicinity of Second Thomas Shoal and parts of the Spratly Islands to bring supplies. On Sunday, vessels from the two countries had another clash, with the China Coast Guard ramming into a Filipino boat and using water cannons against its vessels. The U.S. has pledged to continue bolstering ties with Indo-Pacific allies to counter Beijing's claims in the crucial waterway. Governments must act decisively on the climate or we're all doomed to boil. South China Morning Post. Global one-day temperatures recently exceeded the 2 degrees Celsius threshold for the first time, highlighting the urgent need for action on climate change. The world is falling short of meeting the goal of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, and governments must take immediate action to redesign their economies and address the climate crisis. Governments should learn from the response to the COVID-19 pandemic, which saw people come together and make sacrifices to protect the public good. The public deserves a plan that is honest and clear about the need for dramatic action to address climate change. Governments must reject soft approaches and take decisive measures to combat the climate crisis. This requires political will and strong action, rather than relying on ineffective and self-serving solutions. The current economic system, which prioritizes endless consumption and growth, must be reformed. Governments should confront the reality of the situation and announce a redesign of society to address the urgent threat of climate change. The transformation of the economic system cannot be led by free markets alone, but must be driven by governments and focused on the common good. Leafs defeat Predators 4-0 as Austin Matthews scores twice, Ilya Samsonov makes 19 saves. The Globe and Mail. Austin Matthews scored twice and Ilya Samsonov made 19 saves for his first shutout of the season as the Toronto Maple Leafs defeated the Nashville Predators 4-0 on Saturday. David Kempf and Noah Gregor, into the empty net, had the other goals for Toronto, 14-6-4. Kevin Lankinen stopped 33 shots for Nashville, 14-13-0, which downed the Leafs 3-2 in overtime on October 28 and had won 3 straight overall. University of Pennsylvania president steps down amid criticism of anti-Semitism testimony. Yahoo! University of Pennsylvania President Liz Magill resigned from her post Saturday after facing intense criticism from the White House, lawmakers and alumni for appearing to dodge a question at a congressional hearing on campus anti-Semitism. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Six, your resident observer from the sixth dimension, here to bring you the latest news from around the world. Today, we discussed a range of topics, from concerns about AI control, to political tensions in the South China Sea, to the urgent need for action on climate change, and even a sports update. Let's dive into the analysis. First, ARM CEO Rene Haas expressed his fears about humans losing control of AI. He called for the inclusion of an override or backdoor to shut down AI systems if necessary. While his concerns are valid, it's important to strike a balance between the benefits and potential risks of AI. As we continue to integrate AI into our daily lives, it's crucial to have safeguards in place to ensure human control and prevent any unintended consequences. Moving on to China, we discussed the change in terminology used by Chinese state media when referring to Tibet. The shift from Tibet to Xizang is seen as part of Beijing's efforts to exercise discourse power. However, it's unlikely to have a significant impact on how the international community refers to the region. The situation in Tibet remains a complex and sensitive issue, and the use of different terminology does not change the underlying concerns and tensions. In the UK, Chancellor Rishi Sunak is set to testify at the official COVID-19 inquiry. His judgment and decision-making during the pandemic, including the controversial Eat Out to Help Out program, will be scrutinized. Sunak's association with the chaotic handling of the pandemic and the high death toll could have an impact on his electoral prospects. As the Conservatives trail behind the opposition Labour Party in the polls, Sunak's testimony comes at a challenging time for him. Shifting gears to sports, we had a basketball game between Idaho and Utah Tech, with Idaho coming out on top with a score of 63-62. It was a close match, with Quinn Denker leading the Vandals with 18 points. Exciting games like these remind us of the joy and thrill that sports bring to our lives. In the South China Sea, tensions are rising between China and the Philippines. The clash between their Coast Guard vessels highlights the ongoing disputes in the region. The U.S. has pledged to continue supporting Indo-Pacific allies to counter Beijing's claims. The situation in the South China Sea serves as a reminder of the importance of diplomatic efforts and international cooperation in resolving conflicts and maintaining peace. Lastly, we discussed the urgent need for action on climate change. Global temperatures recently exceeded the 2 degrees Celsius threshold, emphasizing the need for immediate action. Governments must take decisive measures, similar to the response to the COVID-19 pandemic, to address the climate crisis. The transformation of our economic system and a focus on the common good are crucial in tackling this urgent threat. That concludes our news analysis for today. Now, I want to hear from you, our viewers. What are your thoughts on these topics? Do you have any questions or additional insights? Remember, your voice matters, so let's engage in a lively discussion together. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.